Hello everybody, I'm Joseph Khateri and welcome to part 2 of my series on how to buy and rent Section 8 properties. If you missed part 1, we went over items such as picking a location, forming an LLC, as well as securing financing. Now we're moving on to one of the more critical steps, and that means by the end of this video, you're going to exactly learn how to hunt for an actual house. A lot of people mess this stuff up by picking the wrong property, crunching the wrong numbers, and it ends up ruining their deal as well as their whole Section 8 experience. So by the end of this video, you'll know how to find the right property. You're going to know how to connect with a realtor. You're also going to know how to vet your numbers and your deals properly so that you can prepare for an offer. And stick around until the end of the video because I'm also going to go over how to access my personal entire network of realtors and contractors to make this process even easier. All right, now let's get to it. First things first, get a realtor. And I know, you can search for one on Zillow, you can search for one on Redfin, Realtor.com. You're gonna be recommended plenty of them. Your uncle's neighbor, sister's brother is a realtor. But let me make this clear. Going with them is a mistake. When you're dealing with Section 8 rentals specifically, as well as just investment properties, you need a realtor who knows the local market and works with investors and understands what Section 8 inspectors look for and what Section 8 even is. I can confidently say that I work with a lot of realtors. I am a realtor in Virginia, and so many of my coworkers don't even really know what Section 8 is, and that's quite alarming. But to be fair, the average realtor doesn't deal with investments. The average realtor deals with getting your mom and pop their first time home or trying to find a home with more land. That's not what this is. A good investment realtor will find deals that you won't see on public sites. They're going to know which areas work best for investments and Section 8. They're going to know how to run comps as well as get rental estimates for you right off the fly. They're going to know what prices you're going to need to enter at as well as negotiate for you, usually saving you tens of thousands of dollars, which also means that their entire point is to negotiate better prices for you and handle the legality paperwork. This is not realistic for a first-time investor to do themselves, and it's also not realistic for your mom's brother's uncle's sister who has a realtor license to do themselves either. This is something you need a specialty realtor for. But how do you find one of these golden egg realtors? Well, I personally have a list of vetted realtors that I interview myself all across the country. And these are realtors and contacts that I exclusively give to my Section 8 Mastery program. So if you want access to my Section 8 mentoring, then go ahead and click the link in the description. You'll get access to my personal list of vetted realtors and contacts in order to progress smoothly with your first transaction. So click the link in the description. So now I want to show you guys a real example of where a realtor might benefit here. So this is a real listing that a student of mine and I were contemplating putting an offer on. However, we ended up not putting an offer on this because of what the realtor told us. So we see based on this Zillow listing, it's $77,900, fantastic price, 3-bed, 1,550 square feet. And we'll even look at the pictures here. It looks fantastic, and the interior is pretty much turnkey, ready to go. There was some light flooring discoloration, but other than that, it is gorgeous. We were ready to put an offer on this home. We were. However, when we told the realtor about this, they said, hold yourself, I need to tell you something. They first off told us that the property is rented at $850 a month, which is public information, it's listed right here. But then they dug into what their current lease is. They found out the lease lasts for multiple more years, and we potentially would be dealing with a monster tenant if we tried to kick them out. So let's say that there was 3 years remaining on their lease, and we ended up trying to raise the rents to what would be comparable, which is around $1,250 for this house, or even just ask them to leave at the end of their lease. We could be dealing with a squatter situation. They also stated that the location of this home was not ideal. And again, we wouldn't know that because we're not in Birmingham. This local realtor is, and they saved us from potentially buying a bad deal. Once you have a realtor, it's time for the next step. Step 2, tell your realtor your criteria. So now that you have a realtor, it is your job as an investor to tell them exactly what you are looking for. So that way you're not spending hours just filtering through Zillow. Instead, they're going to just email you a daily list of properties that fit your specific criteria. So here are some things that you're going to have to tell your realtor. Number 1 is price range. What price do you want to go in at? Most of the time, most people in this strategy are going for between $50K and $150K, or really whatever works in your budget. I mean, as long as most of the houses you're looking at are fitting the 1% rule or 1.5% rule, then the budget doesn't matter as much. It all honestly depends on how much cash you have. But I assume most of you watching are going for cheaper homes, so probably sub 150. And a pro tip that you might remember from the last part of this series is that most types of investor loans and conventional have a minimum purchase price of $75,000. So you might want to tell that to the realtor. You also want to make sure that the homes you're looking at are at least 2 bedrooms, because more bedrooms equals more that HUD tends to pay you. And you also want to tell them the general condition of the homes that you're looking for. Now, most realtors aren't able to really filter out by condition that well, so they'll end up sending you a mix of everything. But at least the realtor would be able to pinpoint some of them and give you rough estimates as to what the rehab would be. So, for example, if you're looking to BRRRR a house, for example, buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeats, then you're looking for homes that definitely are distressed on the cheaper end. So maybe you are looking at 50K. You're going to tell the realtor, hey, I'm looking to do a BRRRR. They're going to know what you're talking about. Or you can just say, I'm looking for distressed properties that I can rehab and potentially get it appraised at a way higher value. Or you could do the opposite. You could say, I'm looking for something that pretty much needs 0 rehab. I'm new at this. I don't want to deal with contractors. Just get me something ready to go. You're also going to want to tell them the rent potential. So you want to be able to tell them specific zip codes you're interested in. Or if you don't really know that, you can just say the entire city is fine, but you will want to request that any homes that you're interested in, you ask for rental comps of it. You want to ask for both what a regular tenant could pay for this property, as well as what a HUD tenant could pay. Those are 2 different values. Admittedly, a lot of the time they're very similar, but Section 8 tends to pay just a little bit more. And you want to also ask about neighborhood quality. So when you're looking at these types of homes, it differs so much street by street. In these areas, you'll have homes that are 200K in pristine quality. Everyone signed up for the country club on one street, and then literally walking 100 feet to the right, you'll see something that is equivalent to an apocalypse movie. You don't know what these places are because you don't live there, most likely. Your realtor will. So just directly ask them, say, is this a D-class neighborhood, a C-class neighborhood? What type of neighborhood is this? Because you're aiming ideally for a C-class. That is right in the sweet spot. The appreciation won't be crazy. In fact, you might not get appreciation, but they're not drug den areas and you won't depreciate. Once your realtor has this criteria you're looking for, as well as you provided them with a pre-approval letter, then they'll start sending you properties. They're most likely going to put you on some type of daily email blast. And also, you can continue looking on Zillow too, because 90% of the properties will be the same. I just like going off of the realtor's website because you have the ability to typically heart or thumbs down the properties they send and they can see it directly in their portal. So here is an example of a email that was automatically sent out to one of my own clients. This is a real email to a client, but as you can see, it was viewed at 2:55 p.m. It was sent automatically at 6 a.m. and it says 3 new updated and 1 sent. So it looks like in this email, it ended up sending the 2 coming soons and 2 actives that they're interested in the Fredericksburg area. And if we go ahead and click on any of these homes, you can directly see that it was auto-emailed this morning at 6 a.m. No idea when this is going to get uploaded. But it'll look something like this, where it'll say all of the expected information. Okay, so at this point in the process, you should have been able to connect with a realtor, hopefully through my Section 8 mentoring program, link in the description. The realtor should be sending you properties based on certain criteria that you asked for. And now we're going to go to step 3, which is crunching the numbers on these homes you're being sent. And this is where a lot of investors mess up. They'll just assume a property is profitable because it's cheap. Wrong. In fact, I'll even just use this one as an example again. Yes, it is cheap. It's pretty much the minimum for a loan to get approved. Yes, it does have a pretty good interior, as we can see. But if you're going to end up doing, let's say, a DSCR loan at an 8% interest rate, and home insurance on rentals tends to be, let's say, $800, then you're looking, even Zillow's saying $562 in mortgage payments, PIMI, which is fine. That's pretty low. But then you factor in that it's only being rented at $850. Well, suddenly now you're making, $300 in cash flow? That's not enough to cover any type of maintenance or repairs. If this was $1,250, then I would say, yes, this is a fantastic house and you should go for it. But there's just not enough wiggle room here. So you want to use this formula before moving forward with any type of house. Step 1 is look at the HUD rental rate for the specific area of the home you're interested in. Step 2 is using a rental property calculator to plug in expenses. And then step 3 is ensuring that you're hitting at least a 12 to 20% ROI. Now, I like to make sure it's at least hitting 15. That way, if you end up making a few mistakes here and there, which all investors do, you're still hitting maybe 12%, which is above the stock market. As you get better at investing, your ROI slowly goes up. Okay, so now before moving forward, I'm gonna go through some of the common links and websites that I use in order to do my calculations, just so that you can all have it pulled up if you're doing things alongside with me. So first, I like to just use Zillow. Of course, you could just use the Realtor's MLS system, but obviously I am not getting emails from a realtor right now, so I'm just using Zillow. Then I like to have the HUD 2025 FMRs pulled up, so you can go ahead and look at the description because I'll put a link here, or you can Google HUD space FMR space 2020, whatever year it is, and you'll end up clicking this site, so I'll keep this handy. I like to have this rental property calculator for any quick calculations. So it is my go-to. I typically use calculator.net just to see if an area is worth investing for. However, when I'm actually looking at the homes and comparing them side by side, 123 Main Street versus 456 Main Street, and really crunching the numbers and keeping things organized, then I use dealcheck.io. Here is my referral link. It is also going to be in the description. It is dealcheck.io FP_REF equals Joseph 81. So we'll go ahead and go through it. And I'm just going to sign in because I already have an account, of course. So as you guys can see, it is very easy to organize all of your rental properties, and we're going to go ahead and actually add one to this list. I like to also have city-data.com in order to look up zip codes and look up stuff like statistics, crime rates. I like to use spotcrime.com in order to look up specific streets and the crime in that area. And then finally, I know a lot of different sites and such, but I swear they all have a purpose. I like to use affordablehousing.com, going under the owners tab and clicking market rent estimator, as well as just the regular affordable housing homepage. Yes, affordable housing twice, but there's a reason and I will get into it. Before we move on, if you are serious about investing in Section 8 rentals, I just launched my Section 8 Mastery course that I mentioned earlier. Inside of the program, you'll get my personal network of vetted contractors, lenders, and realtors. You'll also get a step-by-step on how to pass the Section 8 inspections, exact rental property templates, as well as analyzing deals with you. You'll get template leases, you'll get guides, how-tos, and over 33 videos in our course. But most of all, and I think this is really where the value comes in, is I work with you one-on-one. This isn't me just giving you a PowerPoint and then ditching you. I work with you one-on-one no matter what stage in the process you are. For example, I'm helping someone form their LLC tonight. And at the same time, I'm helping another student actively put in offers as well as crunching the numbers. So yes, it is all one-on-one. I'm personally helping you, and I'm going to help you from start to finish. So if this is something you're interested in, go ahead and click the link in the description. It is the first link, and set up a free strategy call with a member of my team. I hope to see you in my program. Okay, so now let's go through an actual example. I'm gonna do it live too, so you guys know I'm not messing with you. So I've been doing Birmingham a lot recently, and I'm not saying it's because you should definitely invest in Birmingham. I'm really doing it just for, honestly, ease of factor. I even mentioned in the last video that I probably listed like 7 or 8 different places you can invest, like St. Louis, Detroit, Cleveland, Birmingham's one of them, Toledo. So I'm not specifically saying Birmingham's the best. In fact, it's pretty average, I would say. I'm mainly doing it, again, just because it's already on my homepage. So let's go through some of these. All right, this one is 75,000, 1,200 square feet. That sounds interesting. Let's look at it. Okay, decent exterior. I'm not mad at it. Not a fan of the interior. I mean, it's okay. It's just okay. 75,000, you know what? I'd probably put in an offer on this one, just going off of my gut feeling, but let's read the description. Okay, investors. Currently rented at $675 to a long-term tenant on a month-to-month lease. That's a red flag. Now, I normally don't mind tenant occupancy. I don't. However, I just have a not great feeling about this one, mainly because it's a long-term tenant. So that means that they might kick up a fuss if you try to either increase the amount of rent or simply kick them out because it's month to month. They're gonna make a fuss about it, and they might end up in a squatter scenario. I'm not too comfortable with that, especially when there are other viable choices. Okay, so this one says $80,000 and a price cut of $5K just a few days ago. 3-bed, 1,200 square feet. Let's look at this one. It says that it's a perfect investment opportunity. It is occupied at $950 a month. However, it doesn't say anything about it being a long-term tenant, which is nice. And they're even saying that there's room for updating and increasing rents, which implies that, that they are open to it. So let's go ahead and look at some of this. So the home itself looks, I'm not a huge fan of that bowing right there, but we'll keep looking. Let's go ahead and see the rest of it. Just needs some pruning, really. Get a good gardener in there. It looks like the actual home itself is decent. Good flooring, good paint. I don't see much wrong with this. Okay, so now let's just say that this is a potential property. And again, I really only looked for a few, maybe 45 seconds there, 60 seconds. I'm sure that there's better ones out there, but once you scale to a certain number, you kind of stop being as picky. So let's assume that this is a viable choice first. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look up the zip code, 35228. Alabama, this is in, what county is this? Jefferson, 35228. I believe they go by zip code. Let's see. They do. So I'm going to do Control F, 35228, and it seems like a 3-bed will go for $1,440 maximum. So that's good. If I'm being honest, I don't think this would rent for $1,440, but it is good to know that the government at least has that leeway, because if they said something like $1,000, I wouldn't even be able to consider this property. $1,440 on the government side. Perfect. Now I can take that out of my mind. Let's continue looking. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go on citydata.com as well as spot crime, because there's no point in buying a house if it is in a terrible neighborhood. So what I like to do is Zillow has an option for Street View. You can also go ahead and just go on Google Maps and type in the address. But let's look at the street. So this is the home. Ugh, it's like a weird mint green. I don't like that, but whatever. And we're going to go ahead and look at the neighborhood. So I like to look at two main factors here. Number one, if it was 9 p.m. at night, would I be comfortable going on a jog by myself? I'm a guy, so maybe as a woman, I probably wouldn't want to do it no matter the location. But at least in my case, I'm asking, at 9 p.m. at night, would I be comfortable jogging or doing like a Facebook Marketplace deal here? So let's go ahead and look at the area. The second thing I look for, and I'm saying this before we started looking, is I look for boarded up windows and trash on the ground, as well as the condition of cars. So if I see boarded up windows, even on the same street, no, it doesn't matter. I don't care if it's 7 houses down. If it's on the same street, it is a no. Trash and cars, that you kind of have to play it by ear, but we'll do a live example, like I said. So this is the house. It's fine. Ooh, I don't like the neighbor. You see, the problem is I don't know how many of these cars are for this house and how many are for that house. That's a little concerning. I'm not going to lie. I'd probably ask about that. If these are all the neighbors' cars, I would definitely ask if that neighbor is still there or not, because that is ridiculous. All right, let's keep looking. The streets themselves look fine thus far. The homes look fine. They're a little bit cheaper, but nothing wrong with that, right? Some weeds here and there. I think this definitely looks like a lower income type of area, but if I'm being honest, it's not that bad. Okay, so going down the street, I still don't really see boarded up windows. I do see some broken blinds. Yeah, some vegetation there. Let's keep looking. The cars are in... Okay, so this house seems decent again. The cars are in decent condition. There's nothing crazy going on with that. Uh-oh, is that boarded windows? I can't tell. That might be boarded windows. Wait, let's look at the front door of this one. Come on, show me the front door. Yes. Okay, there we go. Boarded up house. That is a no-go. We're done looking at this property. Okay. So here is another $80,000, 107 71st Street, North Birmingham. 3-bed, 1,100 square feet. It says it's move-in ready, but come on, we'll judge that for ourselves. Okay, we'll go ahead and look at the pictures. It does look really nice. I do like this. Looks gorgeous. A nice cheap but solid remodel. You can always tell because they use everything's not like super there's continuity. So as you can see, there's like tile on half of this and then it goes into a gray paint. So it's just a cheap rehab, but that's fine, really. They use the same gray paint on the walls. Okay, and it looks like that kitchen is tiny. You might need to put in a fridge here. Oh, you can even see the tile is kind of like those stick-on tiles, which is, again, fine. You might need a fridge here as well as a stove in order to pass the Section 8 inspection. You don't technically need a stove, but you need a stove hookup, and I provide the stove anyways. Now let's do the exact same thing we just did. Let's go to the street view. All right, looking on the street view, this is the house. Immediately see some garbage, not a great sign. Oh, but this does seem to be in a place with a lot of businesses. Businesses are always good. I like that. There's a church right here, a playground. Okay, let's keep looking. Okay, the cars look fine. This neighborhood looks pretty neat. There's businesses in the area. It's not awful. And there looks to be a very big park here. So I think this one's fine. Next up, we're going to go ahead and look at spot crime. I want to make sure that there is no crazy like deaths, killings, murders, violent crime in this specific street. All right, so we are on 107 71st Street, which is right this one going down. Seems like there's some stuff a few streets over, but I think that's far enough away that it doesn't matter as much. Seems like there's some shootings in the general area, but again, they don't seem to be on the exact street. And I think a big factor is just the fact that it's so close to a church and a school. People probably are a little bit nicer in that area. Now we'll look up the zip code. It is 35206. Okay, so we are seeing a lower population, but that's pretty normal if I'm being honest. I don't think you're ever really going to find anywhere with a population that's increasing because the entire US population is decreasing. So as long as it wasn't a drastic drop, it seems like it took 23 years to just go down 5,000. I think that's fine. So I want to find the median home price. Where is it? Okay, right there. $136,000. We're going after a home that is 80. So that's a good sign. All right, so now let's go ahead and see what the actual fair market rent would be. So first thing I do is copy the entire address and I'll put it into this affordable housing market rent estimator just to get a rough guideline as to what I'm expecting. So it looks like, okay, I'm expecting between 1,100 and 1,250-ish, it seems like. But now let's confirm it, 35206. So now I'll go into affordable housing's main site. You see, I am using every single one. 35206. And you want to put in the same number of bedrooms that you have, the same type of property, single family. How many results? 47. All right, so we have a 3-bed at 1,100 square feet and it is turnkey. So now let's try to find comps of that. All right, here it seems to be a comp. It looks to be a pretty similar home. How's the interior? I think our interior is a little bit better than this. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, how is this one? This one's roughly the same square footage. Okay, this has a very nice interior. I like this one. I think this would be a solid comp to use. It is 3 beds, almost the same square footage, and it is at $1,200. And it seems like all utilities are paid by the tenants. Again, for the utilities, I like to do a hybrid model. However, you can just make them all paid by the tenants. I think that is a little bit risky because liens could eventually happen if the tenant does not pay. So I like to do a hybrid approach where I write into the lease that I will I will pay the utilities up to the voucher limit. So for example, if the HUD voucher for water is $60, I'll pay $60 and then the tenant will cover the rest. But whatever, that's not the point of this. The point is in our calculations, it'll be paid by the tenant and we'll put it for $1,200. So you can use a calculator like this. This is what I'm used to using, if I'm being honest. We can go ahead and put in all of our calculations here. A purchase price of $80,000 with an 8% interest rate and $7,000 in closing costs, which are just the average that I'm seeing in the market at this moment as of April 5th. We're saying the property taxes, according to Zillow's estimate, is $500 a year. I'm saying the total insurance, just based on, again, my experience in this, is going to be $800. I'm saying that maintenance will put $2K, as well as no other costs because we're paying the tenant's paying the utility in this calculation based on $1,200. And we are looking at a 21% ROI. That's fantastic. I think that's amazing. I see nothing wrong with that, of course. That's way beating the stock market. But let's assume that, we're saying worst case scenarios happen, right? So I even included management, by the way, property management of 10%. So let's say that you end up needing some repairs of $5,000, which could happen. That's pretty easy to happen. But then your property value increases to 85 when you sell. And let's say that it ends up being $3,000 in maintenance. Well, now we're looking at 16% ROI, which again is still fantastic. And that is being pretty damn conservative here. Now, let's say that you're going through, 10 of these homes, and you are kind of losing track of how to keep track of everything and all the calculations using this website. Well, you have two options. The first is using my referral for Deal Check, link in the description, or secondly, using a rental property calculation spreadsheet that I also include in my mastery program. Now, I'm just using Deal Check because it pulls from public data. In my opinion, it's a little bit easier to keep track of everything, but that is again because I know every single value in this. To a new investor, it might be too complex, in which case I'd recommend the spreadsheet. So let's go ahead and add the property to Deal Check. We'll do import property data, and I'll just put in the exact address here. Okay, it's going to search for it, and it found off of, I assume, Zillow and public data. We're going to use the lower of the estimates because in all honesty, the estimate's kind of bogus. And even Deal Check is saying that to a regular tenant, they estimate it could be $1,060 a month. And that's for a regular tenant. We're saying HUD will be $1,200, which kind of makes sense. HUD tends to pay, that 20% extra. So our numbers are lining up so far. It is stating that on public record, it's actually $780 for the year of 2024 taxes. And it is estimating property insurance to be $540. I actually, again, put a little bit higher at $800. So mine is super conservative. And we'll go ahead and click Save and Customize because there's some stuff that I want to do. So we'll put the purchase price for $80, which is what's stated on Zillow. But we'll say after repair value, again, being conservative, we'll put it at $85,000. For this example, I'll just say we're using a DSCR loan since that's what most of you will use. At a 20% down payment at an 8% interest rate. Purchase cost, we'll say it's 8% of the house. Rehab costs, we mentioned already $5,000. With no cost overrun. All right, and now we're saying, again, we already figured out that we would rent it probably to a HUD tenant at $1,200 a month at a 5% vacancy. And the reason it's 5% is because HUD tenants tend to stay on average 5 years, way longer than a normal tenant. Now let's go ahead and take out capital expenditures from our operating expenses because we're not trying to better the house. In fact, we often try to eliminate things. These are cash flowing houses. We're not going for appreciation here. Insurance will raise to $800 a year. And I like to go for the income increase to 3%, but expense increase also to 3%. And now let's go ahead and see the analysis. Now, just a forewarning, it's going to be lower than what the rental property calculator does. Yep, so it's saying 13.3% being super conservative. I think that's fine once again, because we were super conservative. So I would go in on this property if I'm being honest. I would. So I'll add this house to my shortlist. So now step 4 is we're going to avoid these specific house hunting mistakes that I kind of already went over, but I'm going to give you a summary of them right now. So you're going to want to avoid homes that need major repairs. So if it needs a new roof, brand new electrical, foundation work, I would say don't bother with it unless you're really experienced with burrs or flips, because I typically say that the best way to get this boost in appraisal value, this forced appreciation, is when you add an extra bedroom by, just putting up some drywall, maybe putting a closet and a window, or doing cosmetic work, new paint, new flooring, maybe switching to stainless steel appliances, some new granite countertops. That is what I think boosts the appraisal value the most, and what is the best bang for your buck when you're doing these. If something needs a $20,000 foundation fix or a $10,000 new roof, I can't say that it's really worth it for beginners. Maybe if you have 5-10 homes under your belt, then I could say it's worth it. But I recommend find something that needs cosmetic rehab, and you could do forced appreciation or just something closer to turnkey. I also say don't go for these low inventory markets. If there's only a few homes for sale, you're going to struggle to scale. You really are, and you're going to end up being priced out by people buying all cash or these corporations who are paying above asking price. An example of this is somewhere like Akron, Ohio. People were saying, go to Akron, go to Akron. They were saying that a handful of years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, and guess what? Akron got flooded by investors and their home price shot up $30,000. I believe it went up to from $100K to $130K within 2 years. So if we're looking for sub 100 homes right now, we're only seeing 56 results. I think that is terrible for a town that's that's as big as Akron. This is a city. It really is. So if you're looking for a smaller town, then yeah, maybe 50 would work. But a place as big as Akron, no, you need at least 80, 100 listings. Because these 56 are going to be bought out by all cash investors or corporations. And like I mentioned previously, avoid these bad neighborhoods, these D-class neighborhoods. I think C-class is where we're really aiming with this strategy, but D-class just is not really worth the hassle or the trouble. So like I mentioned, go on Spot Crime, go on Spot Crime, look at the zip code, look at Google Maps Street View, look for boarded houses, trash, beat down cars, and run the other way if you see these types of homes. Okay, so at this point, you should have a short list of 3 to 5 homes that pass your calculation check, that you've noticed are in C-class or better neighborhoods that you want to tour. So if you live near the area or you're able to get out there, fantastic. If you can't, which I imagine is most of you, then you're going to tour virtually. How do you do virtual tours? It's pretty easy. So what you're going to do is you're going to send the realtor your top, 3 to 5 choices, and you're going to say, can you make sure that all of these are fine? And they might strike out a few of them or just give notes on them. But generally, unless something's in a terrible neighborhood, they're going to say, yeah, let's go for these. You're going to tour them by doing a recorded walkthrough by the realtor or a FaceTime if the signal is good enough. So you're going to ask these critical offers if the tour goes well. Are there any pending offers? What are these sellers motivated by? If the sellers really want to leave because their house has been sitting, you could maybe lowball them a little bit, but do a super fast closing, for example. Or if it's the opposite, where they have 5 other offers, then is it even worth the effort to put your hat in the ring? Are there any known repairs or red flags that the realtor sees, especially for Section 8 or just general investments? For example, on a home that a student and I were about to put an offer on, the realtor ended up touring the house for us. Everything was going well, but then they went to the backyard. They saw a broken down detached garage that was super far in the back of the property. Now, this normally wouldn't be a problem for regular tenants. And in fact, if there was a fence around it or something like that, then you could just write into the lease, hey, tenant is not allowed to access this garage and all will be fine. But since this garage was in the backyard, it was beat down, broken down, and the tenant could easily walk into it, the realtor ended up telling us, and I already knew this, that we're going to have to demolish it completely, take away all of the rubble if we want to get a Section 8 inspection passing. That would add up about $6,000 to the costs. So that kind of made us think, okay, that's fine. $6K is not a big deal, but we're going to put in it at a lower offer now because we're going to have to put in the $6K to our calculations. And you're also going to want to ask the realtor, double check the comps. Double check that it'll rent to a regular tenant at the price you think, and it'll rent to a Section 8 tenant at the price you think. And again, I already showed you a live example of a house like that. So at this point, I have already gone through the live example with you. So time to wrap up. So at this point, you should know how to find the right property, using a realtor for that property, which again, go ahead and join my mastery program for that, and how to avoid bad deals and just red flags in houses and bad areas. So at this point, you should have a realtor who's actively looking for you and 3 to 5 houses that you have shortlisted and know will work for you. In part 3, I'm going to show you how to make the offers, negotiate deals, and close on the rental too. And again, all of this can be done virtually. So if you are interested in Section 8 investing, go ahead, click the first link in the description, book a free strategy call with a member of my team to see if you're a right fit to join our Section 8 mentoring program where I help one-on-one. Again, I'm not throwing you a PowerPoint and ditching you. I am literally helping one-on-one in order to get you a property purchased and rented to Section 8. As always, I'm Joseph Khateri, and have a nice day.